Preface to the Book of Zohar. Author, Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, Baal HaSolam. 1. In this preface I want to clarify some seemingly simple things, i.e. that is, everyone encounters them, and a lot of ink has been spilled to clarify them. And at the same time, however, we have not yet reached a clear understanding of them on a sufficient level. Question 1. What do we? What are we? Question 2. What are we prescribed to do, literally? What is our destination, in the long chain of being in which we are the little links? Question 3. Looking at ourselves, we feel ourselves so depraved and low, that there are none more despicable, and, looking at the Creator who created us, we come to the conclude that we ought to have been on the highest rung, for no one is able to reach his height, from which it inevitably follows that from the perfect Creator must come perfect deeds. Question, the fourth, which inevitably arises from common sense, is he not the good and the Creator of goodness, above? Above whom there is none, how did he originally create? So many creatures who suffer and suffer all the days of their existence, and is it not the rule of the good to do good, and certainly not to inflict so much evil? Fifth, how is it possible that from the existence beyond time, who has neither beginning nor end, do creatures stem from transient, temporal, and perishable? 2. And to finally clarify all this, we must first do some studies, and not where it is forbidden, God forbid. Namely, concerning the essence Creator, which the mind absolutely and utterly is incapable of apprehending, and therefore of him, we are not able to conceive him, nor to utter a sound. But where the study is the commandment, that is, where the deeds of him are examined as he commanded us in the Torah, know your Father God your Father, and serve him. Divrei Hayamim 128:9, and he also says in the Song of Unity, by your works we have come to know you. Thy works we have come to know thee. And here is the study first. How can we imagine that creation was an absolute innovation, which means a new thing that would not have been contained in him before he created it, while it is clear to every reasonable man is clear that you don't know anything that is not contained in him. And simple common sense would lead you to conclude that. Do you know the giver of that which he has not? Study 2. If you respond by saying that from the fact that he is the Almighty, it follows that he can create things from nothing, that is, a new thing, which is completely impossible, that is new, which is absolutely impossible to detect in him, then the question arises, what is this an object of which it is impossible to conclude that it has not any place in him, but was created for the first time? Study 3. According to Kabbalists, the human soul is part of God, and thus he is no different from the soul except that he is the whole, and the soul is the part. And they compared it to a rock that is torn away from a rock, for there is no difference between rock and stone. That one is the whole, and the other is the part. And in this connection, it is necessary to deal with the following. It's clear that a stone that's broken away from a rock is separated from it through the axe intended for this purpose, and it is separated as a part from a whole. But how can one imagine such a thing of him, that apart from his essence, even to the point of its being severed out of his essence and become a part separate from him, that is, the soul, and to the extent that it becomes that it can only be understood as a part of his essence. 3. Study 4. In that the chariot of Sitra Ara, an unclean force, a force of evil, literally, the reverse side, and Clippet, another name for an unclean power, literally, husk, scales, crusts, shells, is extremely removed from His Holiness to such an extent that you are incapable of imagine such remoteness. How is possible that it could have originated and come into being from His Holiness? And what is more, His Holiness alone secures its existence. Study 5. The notion the resurrection of the dead. For the body is so despicable that from its birth, condemned to death and burial. And furthermore, moreover, it was said in the Zohar that until the body is completely decomposed, the soul cannot ascend to its place in the Garden of Eden, and so it is so as long as anything remains of it. If so, what necessity is there for it comes back and rises up to come back to life from the dead, and is not the Holy Creator able enjoy souls without it? And still more wondrous things our sages have said, may blessed be their memory, in the future the dead shall rise and rise again with all their defects, lest they should say, of the body, it another, and then He shall cure all their defects. It must be understood what business the Holy Creator will, whether it is said, it is different, Zohar, Emer, and point 51. To so much so that for the sake of it He will bring back and recreate all their imperfections so that they need to be cured. Study 6. As they said, may their memory be blessed. Man is the center of all existence, and all the higher worlds, and this the material world with all its contents, were not created other than for His sake. Zohar, Tazriah, 40. And they also obliged man to believe that the world was created for him. Babylonian Talmud, Tractate. Sanhedrin, Sheet 37, and, at first glance, it is difficult to understand that for the sake of such a small man, who does not occupy not even a hair's breadth in the expanse of this world, much less within the limits and the heights of the infinite higher worlds, that for His sake the Holy Creator labored to create all these worlds. And why does a man need all this? 4. And to make sense of all these questions and studies, there is one method, to look to the end of the matter, that is, to the purpose of creation. For no thing can be understood by the process of its making, but only by its result. And it's clear that you can't find anyone doing something without a purpose, unless you can find someone who's not in their right mind and doing something aimless. And I know that there are who are wise among those who have thrown off the yoke of the Torah and the commandments, who say that the Creator created all things and left them to themselves because these creations are so insignificant that it is not befitting for the Creator, the Supreme of the Highest, to see what happens to these and disgusting creatures. In fact, this is not logical, for it is impossible to conclude our lowliness and insignificance without first concluding that we have created ourselves and our inherent characteristics of a corrupt and insignificant being. However, once we conclude that the Lord who is absolutely perfect is the same Master who created and designed our bodies with all their good and bad, then from the hand of the perfect Creator should not come into being creatures disgusting and depraved, and every creature bears witness to the qualities of its Creator. And what is the fault of spoiled garments, if some tailor has failed to sew it? See for example the following passage from the Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Tayanite, Folios 21 de Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, came. And there came to him another man, very ugly. Said to him, Rabbi Elazar, how ugly this man is. And he said to him, Go and tell this to the Master who created me, how ugly is the vessel which thou made, look carefully there. Behold, these pundits, saying that because of our lowliness and worthlessness, it is not fit for him to watch over us, and he has forsaken us, show nothing but a lack of their own logic. Imagine if you met a man who had thought of from the beginning to create creatures so that they to suffer and suffer all the days of their life, like moreover, to leave them behind, not even willing to look after them, to help them a little bit, as you would censure and then despise him. And can any such thing be thought of him to whom all things owe their existence? 5. And so common sense compels us understand the opposite of what lies on the surface, and come to the conclusion that we are, in fact, very good and sublime creations, to the extent that there is no limit to of our importance, that is, it is as it should be and as it is proper to the Master, who created us. For whatever defect of our bodies you might wish to think, after all the explanations you can offer yourself, it will point to none other than to the Creator who created us and all our qualities, for it is clear that he created us, not we. Moreover, he knew the whole series of events that would begin, he knew all the succession of events that would come about by virtue of those qualities and those bad tendencies that he planted in us. But this is what we said, that we should look at the end of the matter. And then we can understand everything. As the proverb says, don't show a fool a thing in the process of working on it. 6. And our sages have already pointed out to us, may the memory of them be blessed, C.S. Chaim Arizal, Shayar HaKalalim, at the beginning of the first chapter, that the Holy One, Creator, did not create the world for other matters than to enjoy his creatures. And this is where we must turn our eyes and all our thoughts, for this is the ultimate goal and the end of the work of the creation of the world. And we must understand that since the purpose of the design of creation to delight his creatures, it inevitably follows that he created in souls a desire of great magnitude to receive what he intended to give them. For the magnitude of all pleasure is commensurate with the magnitude of the desire to receive it, to the extent that the greater desire to receive, the greater the amount of pleasure, and the less the desire to receive, the less is the pleasure of receiving. From the very design of creation inevitably follows the necessity of creating in souls a desire to receive of great magnitude, to coincide with this great pleasure, because the Almighty intended to give souls pleasure. For great pleasure and great desire to receive coincide and complement each other. 7. And after we have learned this, we have already gained the ability to attain an exhaustive and a perfectly clear understanding of the study, the second one. For we have done the research to find out what it is that really exists, object, of which it is possible to conclude clearly that it cannot be found and is not contained in his Creator essence, up to the point where it is said that it is a novelty, characterized as yesh mi'ayin, an entity created out of nothing. And now that we have clearly understood that the purpose of the design creation was to delight his creatures, there is no doubt that he created the desire of a certain power in order to enable, receive from him all the pleasure and grace which he in his design intended for them. For this desire to receive certainly did not contained in his Creator essence before he created it in souls. From whom can he receive? Here he created a novelty that does not exist in him. Besides, it is clear from the design of creation that he had absolutely nothing at all to create anything at all except this desire to receive, because the creation of this novelty is already enough for him to fulfill the whole purpose of creation, i.e., what he intended to do to enjoy us. But all the filling contained in the design of creation, that is, all the kinds of grace that he intended for us are already included into that intent directly from his essence, and there is no need for him to create them anew at that time. While they are already perceived as yesh mi yesh, existing, originated from existing, by the great desire to receive in the souls. And so it has become very clear to us that absolutely all of the material contained in the new creation, from beginning to the end, is only Haratzin Lekabel, the desire to receive. 8. And from there we also have the opportunity to fully understand what is known to the Kabbalists and given by us in Study 3. In their words, we were surprised how it is possible to say about souls that they are a part of God and are comparable to a stone chipped from a rock, in the sense that the rock and the rock are not different from each other except that one of them they are a part, and the other is a whole. And what surprised us the following: in regard to the stone separated from the rock, it is clear that it was made part of it by with the axe intended for it, but how can this be said of his Creator essence, and by what souls are split off from his Creator essence, and how have they come out of the Creator's integrity to become creatures? That which is explained here already contains a good answer to this question, for just as the axe cuts and divides material object into two parts, the qualitative difference in the spiritual divides the object into two parts. For example, when two people love each other, you would say that they are attached as if merging into one body. Conversely, when they are apart, you will say that one person is as distant from the other the east from the west. And what is meant here is not spatial proximity or remoteness, but it's the coincidence of qualities, where two people have the same qualities and therefore one loves everything that the other loves and hates all that the other hates. Then consequently they likewise love each other and merge each other. And if their qualities are different in some way, that is, one loves something even though the other hates it, then in the same way, to the extent of the difference in their qualities, they hate each other and are distant from one another. And if they, for example, have opposite qualities, so that all that one loves is hated by the other, then they are as far apart from each other as the east is from the west. That is, to an extreme degree. 9. Here it is revealed to you that in the spiritual that causes a qualitative difference is like the axe that separates material objects, and also that the measure of removal corresponds to the measure of the opposite of the properties. And from here you will understand that since it is inherent in souls to desire to receive his pleasure, as stated above, and we clearly prove that this quality is utterly absent from the Creator, for from whom he, God forbid, will receive, this qualitative distinction, acquired by souls, causes their separation from his essence in the same way that an axe splits stone from the rock. Thus, because of this qualitative distinction, the souls have gone out of Creator's wholeness and separated from him to become creatures. However, as far as all light of his gained by souls is perceived from his essence as yesh mi yesh, existing from existing. And since this is so, then consequently on the part of his light which, souls, receive within the vessel they have, which is the desire to receive, there is no distinction between them and his essence, for he is received by them as yesh mi yesh, existing from existing, directly from his essence, and all the distinction that exists between the souls and his essence is nothing else than that the souls are a part of his essence. That is, the measure of the light which they have received inside the vessel that represents the desire to receive, this is already the part that has been separated from the God, to be brought inwardly. Qualitatively different entity from him, which is the desire to receive. This qualitative difference makes the soul a part, and because of this, souls came out of that which is characterized as whole, and became that which is characterized as part. For there is no difference between the two except that he is the whole, and they are the part. Like a stone broken off a rock. And understand this well, for there is no way to say more about such lofty matters.